The development of the UAE was reliant on its oil wealth, but as this diminishes, they need to future-proof themselves. And so what they're doing is making the area a destination to visit for entirely different reasons. Who wouldn't want to say that they visited the tallest building in the world?
Dubai. The name alone paints a picture of luxury skyscrapers that pierce the clouds, islands shaped by human hands, malls bigger than towns, and hotels that redefine excess. To the world, it is a symbol of ambition made real, a city that rose from the desert in record time. Tourists see it as a paradise for shopping and adventure. The wealthy come here to close deals in glass towers. Influencers capture its skyline for the perfect post. But rarely does anyone pause to ask, who built all this? Behind the glimmer of gold and the polished steel lies another Dubai one that is seldom shown. Every tower, every villa, every stretch of road has been crafted by hands hardened by labor. Hands that belong to men whose names will never appear on a plaque, whose faces will never be recognized in glossy brochures. This city did not rise by miracle alone. It was forged by migrants, millions of men from South Asia, Africa and beyond, who came chasing opportunity. They left their homes with dreams of providing for their families, of building a better life. They imagined a land of endless possibility. The reality, however, is far less glamorous. Low wages, punishing hours under the desert sun, crowded labor camps far from the city center. For many, Dubai became not the dreamland they hoped for, but a place of survival. They are the invisible backbone of the city, moving quietly in the background while the world marvels at the results of their toil. And that is the paradox of Dubai. On one side, it is a playground for the rich, a showcase of human ambition. On the other, it is a stage where countless workers live in the shadows, their sacrifices hidden behind glass and gold. This documentary is not about the skyscrapers. It's about the people who made them possible. It's about the gap between the Dubai that dazzles the world and the Dubai that only its workers know. So as we step into this story, remember, every glittering tower is built on sacrifice. Every villa hides the sweat of men who will never step inside. Every photograph of Dubai's beauty masks another truth. This is the untold story of how migrants didn't just build Dubai's skyline. They built its suburbs, its skeleton, its very soul.
Dubai is one of the toughest places to build anything, let alone the tallest building in the world. It's extremely hot and it's extremely dry.
Dubai is a city of dreams, or so it appears. To the outside world, it is the glittering jewel of the Middle East, a place where tomorrow arrives today. Shimmering towers pierce the sky, supercars glide across spotless highways, luxury malls rival entire towns in size. It is the postcard image of success, wealth and endless possibility. For many, Dubai represents the future, a city that rose from nothing but sand in just a few decades, transforming into one of the most iconic skylines on Earth. But behind that dazzling image lies another story, a story few are willing to look at, and fewer still are willing to tell. For Dubai's rise did not come without a cost, a hidden cost. One buried deep beneath layers of concrete, hidden behind the glass of palaces and penthouses. When the world gazes up at the Burj Khalifa, the tallest tower on Earth, they marvel at its beauty, its engineering, its grandeur. But rarely do they think about the Nepali worker who spent his days suspended hundreds of meters above the ground, tying steel rods with trembling hands, earning just enough to send a little back home. When visitors flood into the Dubai Mall, they see the fountains, the aquariums, the designer brands, but they do not see the Indian laborer who poured its concrete under the midnight heat, drenched in sweat, his shift stretching into dawn. And when luxury seekers retreat into the quiet comfort of Emirates Hills, where villas sell for millions, they rest in homes crafted by men they'll never meet. Men from Ghana, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, who often return after their 12-hour shifts to cramped rooms, sometimes 6 or more packed together, sharing narrow beds just a few kilometers away from the wealth they helped create. This is Dubai's grand illusion, a city where wealth shines so brightly it blinds the world to the shadows that make it possible. A city built on ambition, yes, but also on sacrifice. A place where the stories of those who built its foundations are often left untold, drowned out by the glimmer of skyscrapers and the roar of Lamborghinis. Dubai sells itself as a paradise, a playground for billionaires, influencers and dreamers. But for the workers who carved its skyline from the desert, life is far from paradise. Their story is not written in gold, but in sweat, calluses and long nights far from home. And so, as the cameras focus on the glitter, this documentary will turn the lens where few dare to look on the lives behind the illusion. Because to understand Dubai, you cannot only look at what stands above the sand, you must also look at what lies beneath it. To truly understand Dubai, you must go back to the beginning. The city that dazzles the world today was once nothing more than a quiet fishing port on the edge of the Arabian desert. In the 1960s, its shoreline was dotted with wooden boats and humble markets. Men cast their nets into the sea, women traded spices and cloth, and the idea of towering skyscrapers or luxury shopping malls was nothing more than fantasy. But then came oil. Black gold hidden beneath the sands changed everything. With oil came wealth, and with wealth came vision. The ruling families of the Emirates looked across the horizon and imagined a future beyond the desert, a future of cities that would rival London, New York and Tokyo. Yet visions cannot build themselves. Dreams, no matter how grand, remain only dreams unless someone brings them to life. And so, a call went out. From Asia, from Africa, from distant villages where opportunities were scarce and families lived in hope of a better tomorrow, men boarded planes and ships bound for a land they had only heard about in whispers. They came as laborers, electricians, plumbers, welders and bricklayers. They came with rough hands and stronger backs, prepared to trade their sweat for wages that could feed their families back home. These men and later women would not appear in glossy advertisements or tourism campaigns. They would never be the face of Dubai in brochures or on Instagram. Yet they were the ones who laid every brick, installed every wire, and poured every foundation. They were not just workers, they were the real architects of the emirate. Today, when you walk the streets of Dubai, you are walking on the labor of millions who came before. The shining towers that rise into the clouds, built by men who left their own children behind in Nepal and India. The smooth highways that cut through the desert, paved by men who once farmed in Bangladesh or toiled in Ghana. The luxury villas that line Palm Jumeirah, crafted by hands from Pakistan, the Philippines and Kenya. Numbers tell part of the story. Over 90% of the UAE's private workforce are immigrants, a staggering figure that few outside the Gulf truly grasp. Imagine a city where nearly every shopkeeper, every taxi driver, every builder, every cleaner comes from somewhere else, a city that rests almost entirely on the shoulders of those who do not belong to it. That is Dubai. And yet, while the city shines with the wealth of oil and commerce, it is the workers silent, unseen, and often unnamed who gave it shape. Their sacrifice turned vision into reality. Without them, there would be no Burj Khalifa, no Dubai Mall, no Emirates Towers, no Palm Islands. Dubai's story cannot be told without them, because they are its foundation, its heartbeat, its hidden architects. But here lies the paradox. Though they built the city, they do not own it. Though they carved its skyline, their names are not etched into its history. They came chasing opportunity, but found themselves in the shadows of the empire they helped create. This is the untold truth of Dubai. The city may sell an image of wealth, but the real architects were never billionaires. They were the migrant workers, the dreamers from faraway lands, who turned desert into destiny. Walk through Dubai today, and it feels endless. The city no longer stops at the glittering towers of Sheikh Zayed Road. Beyond the glass and steel skyline lie sprawling suburbs, carefully planned townships, and entire communities carved from land that was once nothing but sand dunes. Gated estates, man-made lakes, and modern playgrounds, none of it appeared by magic. Every stone, every brick, every road was laid by the same hands that built the icons of the emirate. The sweat that gave the world the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building on earth, also paved the quieter roads of Medif, where families now stroll on evenings cooled by desert breezes. The same calloused hands that raised the glittering towers of Dubai Marina also sculpted Sports City, Discovery Gardens, and Silicon Oasis, places where generations now grow up, where businesses thrive, and where life unfolds in comfort. And yet, this is the contradiction. The workers didn't just build a skyline, they built lives, but not for themselves. They gave Dubai more than towers. They gave it homes, schools, and neighborhoods. They created playgrounds where children laugh, markets where families shop, and streets where dreams are lived. But the lives lived in those spaces belong to others. Think about it. The men who bent steel under the desert sun will never own an apartment in the towers they raised. The laborers who mixed cement for luxury villas will never sleep in them. The electricians who wired the malls may never afford to shop inside. Their work gave comfort, prosperity, and beauty to millions, but left them with little more than wages sent home, month after month, to families they rarely see. Dubai's grandeur hides a quiet truth. Its success is not just in what was built, but in who it was built for. The architects of Dubai created more than a city. They created a life that others enjoy. They shaped the dream of an emirate, where the desert became civilization, but in the process, they sacrificed the chance to live that dream themselves. In every community that rises from the sand, you can still trace their story. The sweat marks in the soil of Al-Barsha, the fingerprints pressed into the foundations of Arabian ranches, the echoes of their labor buried under the highways that stretch into the horizon. They built not only the symbols of wealth, but the invisible backbone of society. The roads, the sewage lines, the electrical grids that no tourist photographs, but without which Dubai could not exist. The irony is haunting. The builders of Dubai gave the city its beating heart, but remain outsiders in the life it sustains. They are passengers on a train they constructed, destined only to watch it speed past without ever stepping inside. Dubai sells itself as a miracle in the desert, and it is. But miracles have makers, and those makers often vanish into the shadows, leaving behind cities that shine brighter than the lives of those who made them possible. This is their legacy. They built more than a city. They built lives for others, but never for themselves. Just minutes away from the marble floors of luxury malls and the polished glass of five-star hotels lies another Dubai tourists will never see. Hidden in the shadows of skyscrapers are the sprawling labor camps, places locals call Sonapur. The name means city of gold, but here there is no gold, only dust, heat, and the heavy silence of forgotten lives. In Sonapur, a single room can hold up to 10 men. Wooden bunk beds creak under their weight. Mattresses are thin, stained, and shared across shifts. Those without space crawl under the bunks to sleep.
I think the prospect of being stuck 160 floors up in the air, should anything happen, petrifies me.
In the peak of summer, when the desert air suffocates like fire, some climb to rooftops desperate for a breeze, their bodies baking under the open sky. Privacy does not exist here. Dignity is a luxury few can afford. Water is rationed. Showers are timed. At night, queues form outside communal bathrooms, tired men clutching buckets, waiting their turn. Paychecks often arrive late or not at all. And when the money does come, most of it is already owed back home, wired across oceans to families surviving on their sacrifices. Passports, symbols of freedom, are taken, locked away by employers. Without them, the workers are trapped. No leaving, no changing jobs, no escape. Every sunrise, the same ritual. Alarms at 4 a.m., bodies dragged from bed, buses crammed with men shuttled to construction sites. By the time the sun begins to scorch the desert at full strength, they are already hours into back-breaking labor. The work does not end until sunset. 12, sometimes 14 hours under 50-degree heat, helmets slipping with sweat, boots sinking in sand and cement. The only break comes with the clang of a lunch bell, a meal of rice, lentils, maybe a few scraps of meat if they are lucky. Then it's back to lifting, bending, hammering, welding, back to building the city that will never be theirs. At night, when the work is done, they shuffle into long lines for food. A metal tray, a scoop of curry, a piece of flatbread. No choice, no variety. They eat in silence, like prisoners, before collapsing into crowded rooms where snores and coughs fill the air. For all this, many earn less in a month than an expat spends on a single dinner in the restaurants they helped construct. Their sweat fuels the nightlife of Dubai. Their exhaustion builds the playgrounds for the rich. Their hunger pays for another man's feast. And yet, they endure, because behind every worker in Sonapur is a family waiting thousands of miles away. Children needing school fees, parents needing medicine, wives waiting for money to buy rice. For them, these men carry on. They swallow the heat, the pain, the insults, the emptiness. They trade their youth for wages that slip through their fingers as quickly as they are earned. This is Dubai's other wall, the wall that separates the luxury from the labor, the dream from the nightmare. A city built to dazzle the world, standing on the shoulders of men hidden in the shadows, men who gave everything, yet live with nothing. Behind the luxury lies Sonapur, the city of gold. But for those who live there, it is a city of sacrifice, of broken promises, and of lives consumed by a dream that was never theirs. They were promised safety, promised wages, promised dignity. But all of it came with one unspoken condition: silence. For the men who poured Dubai's foundations, silence was survival. To complain was to risk everything. To resist was to vanish. The laws of the Emirates are clear. Strikes are forbidden. Collective bargaining is forbidden. And those who dare break the silence often find themselves not only unemployed, but deported overnight, cast back to their homelands with empty pockets and shattered dreams. Yet even under this weight of fear, resistance still flickered. In the summer heat of 2006, thousands of construction workers laid down their tools, demanding unpaid wages and humane living conditions. For days they marched, chanting for justice beneath the very skyscrapers they had built. But their voices were met with riot police, arrests and deportations. The protests were erased from glossy brochures and travel guides, but the memory lingers in the hearts of those who were there. And it didn't stop there. In 2011, as the Arab Spring reshaped the region, whispers of revolt crept into Dubai's labor camps. Workers, emboldened by movements abroad, dared to demand more food, pay, respect. But here, there would be no revolution. The strikes were crushed swiftly, quietly, buried under the sands of silence. Still, the quiet rebellion persists in smaller acts. A worker refusing to hand over his passport, another sneaking a phone to record his living quarters, a group pooling their money to buy food when their wages are withheld. These aren't grand revolutions, but they are defiance, small flames in a city that demands obedience. The irony is painful. They built the palaces of the rich, yet lived in conditions worse than prisoners. They laid the marble of luxury malls, but were forbidden from entering them. They erected towers of glass and gold, but their own windows opened only to cramped, dusty alleys in Sonapur. And when one worker's body breaks from the heat, exhaustion or accident, there is no grand farewell, no obituary, just paperwork. His place is quickly filled by another son from Nepal, another brother from Bangladesh, another father from Ghana. Disposable hands in an endless cycle. Dubai presents itself as a land of opportunity, a utopia of modernity. But for the men who built it, opportunity was always conditional. Work hard, stay silent, and accept your fate. That is the unwritten contract. Yet the question lingers: how long can silence hold back the weight of injustice? How many voices must be silenced before the cracks begin to show in Dubai's golden facade? Behind the luxury, behind the wealth, there is a hidden struggle, a resistance not in the streets but in the hearts of those who refuse to surrender their humanity, even when the world refuses to see them, because even silence can be powerful. And even whispers, when multiplied by thousands, can echo louder than glass towers. It has a name, the system that keeps millions of workers bound like invisible chains. It's called KAFALA. At first glance, the word sounds harmless, sponsorship. But in reality, it is a cage. Under KAFALA, a migrant's very existence, his right to work, to live, even to breathe within the borders of the United Arab Emirates, belongs not to himself, but to his employer. Every visa, every residence permit, every contract is tied to the sponsor. This means one thing: without permission, there is no movement, no switching jobs, no leaving the country, no freedom. Employers hold the keys and the workers remain trapped. It is a system designed to control, and it does so with ruthless efficiency. A man who dares complain risks not just losing his job, but losing his legal right to remain in the country. He becomes illegal overnight. The employer doesn't need to raise a fist. The law itself enforces obedience. This legalized exploitation runs deeper than missed wages or poor housing. It is psychological captivity. Imagine working 12 hours in the desert heat, knowing you cannot quit. Imagine being beaten or starved, but still forbidden from walking away. The KAFALA system turns employers into gatekeepers of survival and workers into hostages of legality. For decades, governments defended it. They said it was necessary. They said it brought order to the labor force. In truth, it brought profit. Because when a man has no escape, he will endure anything to keep feeding his family back home. He will accept wages cut in half, hours doubled, dignity stripped away. Passports are often seized, though officially illegal, phones monitored, complaints buried. If a laborer runs, the employer simply files an absconding case. Police arrest him. Deportation follows. His dreams end, not with justice, but with silence. The KAFALA system was not unique to Dubai. Across the Gulf, from Qatar to Saudi Arabia, it became the backbone of mega projects and skyscraper dreams. But here, in the City of Gold, it turned men into shadows seen working on scaffolds, unseen as human beings. And yet, cracks began to appear. International pressure mounted. Rights groups exposed the horror. Media outlets revealed the suicides, the heat deaths, the vanished men. Countries like Qatar began to announce reforms, promising freedom of movement, freedom to change jobs. But in practice, change has been slow, uneven, and sometimes only cosmetic. For Dubai's laborers, the story is not one of liberation, but of survival. Even as governments claim reform, many workers still whisper the same truth. The system remains. The employer still decides their fate. The chains may look different, but the captivity feels the same. The tragedy of KAFALA is not just that it exploited millions, it normalized their exploitation. It told the world, this is how progress is built, on the backs of men without choices. And so the towers rose, the malls glittered, and the yachts sailed. But beneath the glamour lies a system that turned human beings into possessions, legally, openly, and for decades without challenge. The KAFALA trap is not a story of past injustice. It is a shadow that still lingers, haunting the men who built Dubai's paradise but remain locked out of it. Dubai, the city of endless imagination, a place where glass towers rise from the desert, and luxury is not an exception, but a standard. In Al Barsha South, they built smart villas fitted with touchless lights, motion sensors, and marble kitchens imported from Europe. In Town Square, they laid roads lined with fiber-optic street lamps that glow like constellations at night. Every corner whispers the promise of tomorrow modern, dazzling, untouchable. But those who brought these dreams to life do not belong to them. When their shift ends, the men who dug the foundations, carried the bricks and laid the cables are not allowed to rest in the world they created. Instead, they are herded onto buses, old, rattling and overcrowded. These buses drive them far from the glamour, out to labor camps hidden beyond the city's polished facade. There, reality hits hard. No air conditioning to ease the desert heat. No privacy from the dozens of men crammed into a single room. No peace from the endless noise of exhaustion and despair. Mattresses thin as cardboard line the floor, and showers are shared by hundreds. The luxury of Dubai is built on their sweat, but when the day ends, they return to conditions that barely qualify as human. The contrast is brutal. In the morning, a man installs crystal chandeliers in a villa worth millions. At night, he eats lentils and flatbread in a camp where cockroaches crawl across the walls. He lays marble floors in shopping malls, but walks barefoot on cracked cement back at home. He helps raise towers with infinity pools, but bathes in water rationed and lukewarm. For the world, Dubai is a paradise. For them, it is a mirage. They are the ghosts of the city, visible only while they work, invisible once they step off the construction site. The villas shine, the towers gleam, but the men who built them fade into the shadows, forgotten. And the cruelest irony, they cannot even enter the places they built. Malls and gated communities are patrolled, guarded and policed to keep them out. Their sweat bought the marble, their blood paid for the glass, but their footsteps are unwelcome on the polished floors. The city lives off their labor, yet denies them a place within it. It is exploitation disguised as progress, a paradox too glaring to ignore. The people who built the dream are the only ones forbidden to live it. When visitors arrive in Dubai, they see the Burj Khalifa glittering against the sky. They marvel at the Palm Islands, the luxury resorts, the billion-dollar developments, but they do not see the buses at dawn, filled with men whose shoulders are bent not from pride but from weight. They do not see the labor camps where home is a bed stacked on top of another bed and hope is rationed thinner than food. This is the hidden city built by hands that will never hold its riches, built by men who will never sleep in the villas, never shop in the malls, never swim in the infinity pools. They build dreams, yes, but dreams for others, not for themselves. And so they drift through Dubai like shadows, existing on the edges of a paradise they helped shape. They are not just workers, they are ghosts in a city that pretends not to see them. This documentary is not just a tribute, it is a reckoning. Dubai's towers rise like monuments to ambition. The glass shimmers, the fountains dance, and the skyline tells a story of human possibility. But beneath that story lies another one, etched not in glass and steel, but in sweat and sacrifice. Dubai may have been built on ambition, but it stood on backs bent by labor, on calloused hands that carried stone, on men who traded years of their lives for wages that barely crossed borders. Their names were hidden, their faces blurred, their voices silenced. Until now, it is time we say their names, it is time we show their faces. It is time we honor their work, not as shadows in the background of postcards, but as the very foundation of the dream the world applauds, because progress without justice is an illusion, and prosperity without dignity is theft. The question is no longer, why does no one speak for them? The question is, why aren't we speaking for them? Change begins with acknowledgement. By remembering that every skyscraper, every hotel, every palm-shaped island was built not only with steel and cement, but with the human spirit of men who deserve more than silence. Their story is not one of pity, it is one of resilience. Against all odds, they endured. They dreamed of a better life for their families, and in their own way they succeeded. Their sacrifice put children through school, built homes in faraway villages, and gave hope where none existed before. But resilience should never be mistaken for consent. Endurance should never excuse exploitation. That is why this reckoning matters. The world has a choice. We can continue to glamorize the skyline while ignoring the workers who built it. Or we can demand something better. Fair contracts, safe working conditions, timely pay, A voice that cannot be silenced by fear of deportation. And it begins with us, those who visit, those who invest, those who post, those who watch. The least we can offer is respect. The most we can demand is justice. Look again at Dubai's skyline. Now imagine it without the workers. Imagine the city without their sweat, without their sacrifice. There would be no skyline, no dream, no Dubai as the world knows it. They built your city. The least they deserve is your respect. And perhaps, if enough voices rise, the silence that has buried their stories for decades will finally shatter. And when it does, the future will not just remember Dubai as a city of glass and ambition, but as a place where justice found its voice, where humanity finally mattered as much as progress. The workers gave Dubai its strength. Now the world must give them their dignity. And so, we come to the end of this story. But the truth doesn't end here. What you've just witnessed is not only about Dubai. It is about us. It is about the way the world celebrates progress while ignoring the hands that built it. It is about the silence we accept, the injustice we scroll past, the stories we refuse to tell because they do not fit into the glitter of postcards and Instagram feeds. But today we've looked beyond the skyline. We've seen the men who carved this city from the sand. We've heard the silence that surrounds them. And we've asked the question that the world has been too comfortable to ignore. Who speaks for them? The answer is simple. We must. Because the future of justice does not belong to governments or corporations alone. It belongs to the people who care enough to remember, to the ones who keep asking questions, to the ones who refuse to let silence win. Every great city is remembered for its monuments, but true greatness is remembered for its humanity, and humanity demands that we honor the men whose sweat became Dubai's foundation. This story is not the end. It is the beginning of a conversation about rights, dignity, and respect. A conversation that cannot die out as quickly as a headline, but must live on in every voice that dares to speak truth. So, if this story moved you, don't let it stop here. Join us as we uncover more hidden truths, more untold histories, more voices that the world has tried to forget. Subscribe now to NKEOMA Documentary TV, because stories like this must be told, and together we will keep telling them. And before you go, if you truly want this inhuman behavior to stop, drop your thoughts in the comments. How do you believe change can begin? Let's start a community discussion on how to pressure the Dubai authorities to finally end the KAFALA treatment. Your voice matters. Let it be heard.